Welcome back to the Brightfall saga. Quick recap of the first part. The gang was hired to kill a queen, killed said queen and was chased away by a kraken. Then went to a mine filled with dwarves that turned into boar creatures by drinking archfey blood, and I became a captain. Go back if you haven't seen what I'm talking about, but let's get back to business. So Victor had just been told that he was the new captain of Tantalus, which was our little group of problem solvers, who are now out of job. But I don't think that'll matter in a moment. You see, we decided to gather the group and camp out in town before we went back to the king for more work. However, our rest was somewhat interrupted. We were woken abruptly, and as we rushed out of our tents, we saw that it seems that the rival town that we killed the queen of wasn't just going to let us get away with that. They had besieged the walls of the keep with owlbear support, all led by some shrouded masked figure who held great magic. But with the help of an overcharged acid blast by Lekku, we managed to break the wall and escape from being cornered to let them keep besieging the keep while we got away. Dreading what they might do when they get inside, but there was like 6 of us and a horde of them. But as we ran through the town, we noticed that there weren't any guards, other than Richard, who was with us now. But there was no fighting. The town wasn't being razed, other than the keep, or at least where we were. Absolutely no one was in this town other than us. I have no idea if they evacuated without us knowing, or if the whole town was used to turn into a philosopher's stone or something, but there wasn't a soul in sight as we ran to the boat. I have no idea what happened. Even till today. Right now, as I record this, I don't know what happened. It's 4 years later. Now, at some point, Percy turned our boat into some kind of sail/steam hybrid, so we used that to jet the heck out of here, wondering what in the heck just happened. And trust me, we looked into this as much as we could. Every town we got to, I put out a locate person spell on the princess, just to see if she was around, and I got nothing. We stopped at a town nearby, and after warning them of what happened to the previous town, we got some information from the town's magic item saleswoman about the Feywild. And that seems to point to a nearby town more inland. So, if anything, we had that to go on. As we moved around town, unsure of really what to do or what was going on, Percy and Lekku were attacked at the docks by some strange hooded vagabond assailant, a strange hooded assassin, whose main gimmick was to summon dire creatures, from rats to wolves and bears. He'll just pull them out of his cloak, bada bam, he is a bear. Seeing this from across town, we quickly rushed to help. This singular attacker proved to be very dangerous, and things were looking kinda grim. He was stacking up these summons pretty quickly, but we heard something approaching quickly from the docks. As we looked, it was our man Richard, coming in with an apron on, having seen us from the ship while preparing food. I think this was the first time seeing a dual-wielding fighter in 5e, and he mopped the place up hard. If my character was more confident, he would have kissed the dude. After torching the ship the attacker came in on, we found him holding wanted posters, seemingly sent by the town we attacked as a bounty hunter. We felt a bit used by the town that employed us as some kind of scapegoats, so we quickly left again, not wanting to bring more trouble to this town, and we decided to head more inland towards this Archfey-blood lead. On our way to this village, we wandered through this forested path, where we immediately felt watched and preyed upon. Somewhat getting on edge, we unsheathed and unholstered our weapons when, bursting from either side of the path was a horde of orc. Some even riding direwolves. These hulking warriors rushed us like a green tide, but we weren't exactly the weakest at this point either. We had a lot of area of effects attacks by now. One of my especially favourite, Spirit Guardians. Upon taking down the attackers, we rushed the rest of the way to town, not knowing if they were also being attacked, but luckily for us, they were fine and seemed well fortified to these attacks. So we took refuge in the town and even tracked the Feywild even further to a nearby orc encampment. Ericadu promised the leader that we would help deal with it in trade for a flying broom, which was, I guess, a little bonus for us. We were going to do it anyway. And I also picked up a mithril blade at the blacksmith there. I think also a shield, but I might have got that later. Either way, we made our way to this orc encampment, finding much more than we were bargaining for. There were kobold trapped trolls, an orc warboss, and a bunch of orc shaman, like at least a handful. A much tougher fight than we had previously dealt with, and a lot more attackers. We deliberated on a plan, and we set loose the captured troll, and while they were fighting and wreaking havoc, we busted in. And did we mention that Percy was a lichen blood hunter? There he is a werewolf, look at him go, tearing him up. We made our way further into this encampment. We found that they had set up around some sort of ruined area, where we found a cool lightning sword. It was massive. And as I grabbed it, it shrunk, so it was my size. But the sword wasn't really a sword. It was like a magic item that let me summon a lightning sword. It was pretty strong. A lot of our magic items were honestly pretty strong. Percy had a gun that he kept adding barrels onto, and these cool blood shards he could make. Some kind of bloodborne blood echoes ability that turned his gun into an absolute cannon. The thing had plus 25 damage after sharpshooter. Along with that though, we found a strange magical vortex in the last room of the ruins. The Feyblood, the orcs, all seem to be coming from whatever this is. So off we jump. Into the Feywild. Here we go again. We didn't have much to go on once we were in here, so we just did our best to wing it. With a little exploring, we came across dingy-looking hunters, and when I say hunters, very much think Bloodborne hunters, with the mask and the duster and the hats. They seem to have treants in their thrall and were working with orc, and were using them rather ironically to deforest the area, pulling down trees and loading them on carts. All of us were a little wary of them, other than Ericadu, who walked up and introduced himself and us to them. I mean, they could have been nice. We had never met these hunters before. The only problem is they weren't nice. And these guys were by far the strongest singular foes we had faced so far. These hunters, each one of them was really, really strong. Potentially because we were also kind of beefed up at this point by our magical items. These hunters were known as the Venom Hunters. I think that was a bonus supplement out for the Blood Hunter. For one, they all had silver weapons, making Percy unable to use his lichen form. Along with that, they had strange venom-based attacks, and each of them had a strange pet snake that seemed to be plugged into them, giving them regeneration abilities. I was envious. I had to have a pet snake too. With the Nat 20 animal handling, it was mine. All allegiance was broken, as I somehow portrayed to the snake that he had to no longer be a tool to those who would use him for their own goals. I promised him a happier life, a safer life, where he could live the snake life he wanted. And that's how I gained a pet snake named Jerry. My best friend. And I took the guy's hat. With the help of a few spells to make the treants fight each other, we dealt with the hunters and we managed to survive. Well, most of us. We noticed that the water in the Feywild, at least around here, had strange healing properties, but also some mind-warping abilities. We had to make wisdom saves often around the pools of water, and after the battle, as we looked around, we saw Lekku face down in one of the pools. I had the spell to bring him back. I made sure to have Revivify ready. I in no way had the material components for it. A big shock to someone who just realized material components exist. We grabbed his body and rather unrespectively and unceremoniously carried him along with us in case we found some way to help him. We were in the Feywild after all, who knows, right? But we did make our way to where these hunters seemed to be heading with the wood they were collecting. It was a much, much larger orc fortress, seemingly ran by these venom hunters. This was the grounds of one of the most intense, largest battles I've ever been in, but the first of many when it comes to this story. But we'll get to that in part 3. Thank you so much for sticking through this so far. I know it's the middle of a story, so it's a lot harder to keep overly interesting stuff happening. But it's about the journey, man. Stay tuned. This could be my last video for the year. At least my last animated. It's been a pretty terrible year, in terms of world. But, I don't know, mine's been pretty good. I've met people I've idolized and talked to them. I've made absolutely amazing new friends. So really, I cannot complain. See you in the next video.